First of all, I want to express gratitude to Esther for being the vehicle for all this. It's helped me enormously, and I appreciate what she does.
There's nothing that she would rather do. It's her favorite moment in time.
I got sober in AA in 1983.
Finally.
The value of Miller stock tumbled after I stopped drinking. At that time, the old-timers in AA were talking a lot about what is called now the law of attraction, about your thoughts creating a reality, that, yes, I had a drinking problem, but much more importantly, I had a thinking problem. And a lot of them had studied the works of Emmett Fox and some of the New Thought thinkers of that time that say similar things to what you, Abraham, are saying.
Yes.
And so now, as I appreciate very much that at a time in my life when I needed it, I discovered your tapes and have listened to the message and have grown enormously from it. But what I wanted to ask is, some of the things that you say just sound so familiar to me, and it's kind of a personal question.
Everything we say should feel familiar to all of you, because it's the understanding that you were born with, that you just vibrated away from in response to the way life was touching you. But now you're coming back into vibrational alignment with your true understanding of who you are. Yes.
And may I ask, do I know any of you?
Well, as humans want to make us literal in the way that humans are literal, it's not like that. But the basis of that which we are and the basis of that which you are is the same. We're a collective consciousness, a stream of consciousness. And so sorting us out as individual personalities is something that is not likely to happen. But recognizing the basis of us and the basis of you certainly is. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Also,
yes.
Important and further response to what you're asking. When you've been physically focused and you reemerge into non-physical, you still are very interested in what's going on in physical. And so there are many of those founders and participants of the AA organization and beyond. Everyone who has ever been physically focused is non-physically focused forward with that which you are, because this is the leading edge. And so that feeling of really distinct familiarity is you sifting through the vibration of non-physical, isolating something that's active within you because of something that you've been reading or something that you're knowing, and you are absolutely calling forth that specific consciousness to have conversation or knowing with you. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Because of this way of life, I've been able to create some amazing situations in my life. And just as one example, I was at work and talking to my boss and just got this prompting to lean forward to make a point, and a very heavy grate fell from the ceiling and hit the back of my chair with the point of it.
This is what we mean when we say your inner being is always with you and has broader view about everything and knows in every moment where you are in relationship to everything that matters to you. And when you are in sync with who you are, so that those impulses are flowing through you easily. Esther likes to watch the birds, because often a bird will make an entrance into her experience in a dramatic way, like dive bombing into the swimming pool or something unusual, not characteristic to this bird, but he's making some point, and Esther knows that this bird has received this pure impulse from non-physical to punctuate something that Esther's got going on in her life or in her mind at the moment. And so, yes, when you are tuned in, when you are feeling good, and therefore you're not having to think about whether you should lean forward, the impulse just comes and you do. Oh, this is really what we're talking about. That's that sweet spot where you are able to receive that broader perspective. Some years ago, Jerry and Esther moved to Texas. They had not been there long. And they discovered that there are some, what the Texans call true gully washers that come through, big rains that come, and the rivers rise, and often there is flooding around or near the rivers, and sometimes beyond. And so Jerry and Esther had left their property to go into this little town of Bernie to collect their mail. And they couldn't get to the post office because the Cibolo Creek had overrun its banks, and the post office was surrounded. There was no way to get into it. So they immediately called their friend, Pat and Lawrence, who lived in San Antonio, which was downstream from Bernie, because the Cibolo Creek went right through the 1,000 acres of property that they had in San Antonio. And Esther said, Cibolo's over its banks here and undoubtedly headed your way. And they said, thanks so much. And they moved their tractors and their cattle from the field that was prone to flooding. And then Pat called back and said, it is so nice to have a friend upstream. And that's what we want you to know you have with your source energy bird's eye view about everything. In other words, not only understanding who you really are and what you're wanting, but where you stand right now in relationship to it. And this is the most important thing that you'll hear from us. Understanding what the path of least resistance is to get you from where you are to where you want to be without a grate stuck in your head. From where you are to where you want to be. And the important thing that we want to say about that path of least resistance is you have put all the resistance on your path, not knowing that you're doing it, of course, but by forming beliefs that get in the way, beliefs of unworthiness, or beliefs that something is difficult, or beliefs that you're not capable, or beliefs that you are vulnerable, or beliefs that there are all kinds of things that are fostered in your environment. And your parents, bless their hearts, well-meaning beings that they are, put a lot of those fear in you to try to contain you. And so as you have these pieces of resistance on your trail, your inner being is not condemning you for the resistance being there. Your inner being is just understanding where you are and where you want to be and what resistant pieces you have, and knows how to guide you around them. And so your inner being wasn't tugging on your shoulder and saying, hey, listen to me, get out your notebook, write down these words, the sky is going to fall right now. There wasn't time for that. Instead, you just were offered an impulse of knowledge, and you were the receiver of it, the pure receiver of it. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people get hit in the head because they're worried about this, and they're worried about this, and they're worried about this. But it isn't because guidance isn't being offered. It isn't because the revelation isn't there. It's that you're not in the receptive mode of it because you're in the receptive mode of something else. You can't be in the receptive mode of joyful things and the receptive mode of negative, unpleasant things at the same time. You've got your tuner set where you've got your tuner set, you see. So clearly, your tuner was set in sync with who you are, and the impulse just flowed. And that's the way it is all day, every day. You are all so guided, and you know it. Things like that happen all the time to all of you. You're zigging and zagging into well-being over and over and over again. And just because occasionally you get caught out of sync doesn't mean anything, that you're just not paying attention to what you're doing. We like to lovingly call it sloppy thinking. Not paying attention to the way you feel. Yeah.
Last question. I'm a journalist, one of those people who writes all those negative stories that people should probably try not to watch. And
well, stop it. No, we don't mean that at all. We mean you could be. You are. You could very well be. It's who you are. You might be. It's absolutely who you are. You could be the next Locke. There are a lot of people that don't want to go 84 feet all at once. It would disrupt their apple cart. But you can write clarity that brings them here without taking the masses further than they're ready to go. As a journalist, you undoubtedly have discovered that there is never a crowd on the leading edge.
No, right.
And so most journalists don't write for the leading edge. They write for the common edge. They write for the masses who are responding to conditions, who are reacting to conditions, who are not yet remembering that they create their own reality, who would rather blame, who would rather find fault, who find a little ease in it being someone else's fault, who don't want yet, who aren't ready yet to accept that they create their own reality. So it's all right to build bridges.
I got laid off last year. I highly recommend being laid off. It's a wonderful, at least in my case, it's been a wonderful experience. As a part of a reorg, I got a year's salary, and I was able to take the time to do what I've always wanted to do, which is write books. And I've spent this last year reporting. I didn't start listening to your tapes and get reinvigorated with this way of thinking till about 4 months ago, maybe. And the whole focus of my book is about a problem. And I've always believed, I wanted to be a journalist because I always thought that if people know the truth, then they will independently make up their mind and do the right thing, but they'll have that information.
It certainly is step one of the process. Step one is ask. And you can't ask without sifting and sorting. So knowing what you don't want is the asking. Once you ask, step two automatically takes place, and the problem is solved. The answer is given. But most people don't make that bridge from beating the drum of the problem and stepping into the vibration of the solution. And so there are many people that are predominantly step one catalysts. The world doesn't really need more of you. But there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that the vibration of the problem and the vibration of the solution are two very different vibrations.
So a book that lays out the problem in some degree, but yet offers at the same time a higher vibration is, I don't want to invest all my time in writing something that isn't, going to be good for my
we would look at it as a process for yourself in this way. By focusing upon the problem, no one, but we're talking specifically to you.
Yeah.
You cannot focus upon a problem without the solution occurring in this vortex. Because when you're focused upon the problem, you're asking for the solution. And so even though for a while your impetus and your emphasis may be upon the problem itself, the solution is in the vortex. The solution is in this vibrational reality. The solution is gestating. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we would like to point out to you that you're not the first one to see this problem. You're just articulating it particularly well. But there are many people who are aware of it, and so the solution is in the vortex, and it is growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so there's no one more likely to receive the clarity of what the solution is and the evolving steps toward it than someone who has fixated for a while upon the problem. You are asking with stronger intensity than almost anybody that you'll ever meet about it, you see. But it is a matter of understanding that you cannot be in the asking mode and the receiving mode at the same time. Sort of like what's going on here. Esther is in the receiving mode, so she is not twirled up in any problems that any of you may have as you sit here. So you're doing step one, Abraham's doing step two, and Esther is doing step three by allowing the translation of the solution to come forth, you see. But you all have the ability to do step one, allow source to do step two, and then do step three. You just can't do step three the same time you're doing step one. So once you feel that you have adequately identified the problem, then rest with it. Don't keep beating the drum of it. Don't keep justifying it. Don't keep pushing against it. Get into that mode where now it feels clearly identified to you. Now, listen for the answer in the same way that you listened for the impulse to get out of the way of the ceiling falling in. It's the same thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Really good. Thank you.